In this movie about monograms, we're going to make the nameplate monogram, which is very easy to make, but at the same time, there are some features of it that are very difficult, and we could save it so that we don't have to recreate them each time we want to use that same monogram. To start with, I'm going to create a new card from scratch at 5x7 and delete the existing text box that gets created. The monogram itself was made from the monogram tool that we have, and we're going to use the PE Sonetta font, and we're going to type in the customer's initials, which GMR. And I am going to use a border, and I'm going to use this double border pattern here. And I'm going to click OK, and as you can see, it inserts in the upper left-hand corner. And I'm going to enlarge it, make the size that I want. In this particular case, the position of the letters inside the border isn't exactly centered. It's thrown off because of the width of some of the letters inside. Particularly, we have way too much space here on the right-hand side to the letter M. We have a tool to adjust for that. If we click on any of these letters up here in between the letters we want to adjust, in this case I want to click to the right of M, I can kern that border so that it finds its centered position, aligning the letters and the borders. Now there it is, using the monogram tool exactly as is, but it doesn't have the colored background. There's several ways I can make the color background, but I'm going to go ahead and use one that seems overly complicated, but in fact is fairly easy. To do this, we're going to remove the border pattern that we have on the monogram. We're going to simply uncheck border. I'm going to re-add the border in a separate text box. I could also be doing this inside of an alpha bin, but I'm going to start with a PE Sonetta text box. I'm going to make this a very large size down here to begin with. I'm going to insert, using my virtual keyboard from the PE Sonetta font, the border that we want, which is on number 4 in uppercase. It's a little small, so I'm going to grab it, and I'm just going to simply click and keep clicking until I get it to be the size that I want. Maybe easier to do this in position, so I'm going to take this text box, and I'm going to drag it here. I'm going to highlight that little character again, and continue clicking until I get it the size that I want. And there it is. And I think that's pretty good. I may want to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to right click again, select the contents, and give it another click or two. I could also use the tool up here at the top of the toolbar to make sure that it is the way that I want it to be. Okay. Next up we're going to do is we're going to put a color behind the nameplate. Again, I'm going to use a fixed shape to do this, and our fixed shape comes in the upper left-hand corner. Comes in, it's a layer that sits on top of everything else. So I'm going to go to layer, push back underneath everything. I'm going to resize it, and I can magnify our view in a moment here to get it a little bit closer to the actual size we want it to be, but I am going to choose layout, and I am going to choose a color at the moment. And let's just choose one of the colors in this family over here so it really stands out for us. I'm going to magnify my view, and I'm going to use the shift key because I like to just grab one side at a time. I could deal with all sides equally by just grabbing them at one time, but using the shift key overwrites and just let me deal with the direction that I have. And if I want to magnify my view again to make certain that things look good, I don't have anything too far outside of the black, everything's good. So now the question is, how do we deal with the corners? Because the corners clearly, we don't want them to show that way. We want cutouts, and the cutouts are circular, and we don't have a shape that matches that in our fixed shape tool, so we have to kind of trick it a little bit. The way we're going to trick it is using circles. So I'm going to take a circle, and I'm going to shrink it down to size. Now, I can match the size exactly as we have it, and actually if I magnify the view so we could again see what we're doing, I can match it exactly, or I can get kind of close knowing that the black of this arc on top is going to cover up any imperfections that I have like that. So with that as a starting point, I'm going to choose a layout, choose my color, make it white so that it blends into the background. And there it is, and its layers is sitting on top of everything, and I want it to go underneath the monogram frame. So as a layer, I'm going to push it back by 1. That's why. So you could see it's underneath everything. And if I work on my magnified view, I'm going to position this right where I want it. And now all I need to do is simply duplicate this circle, and as a layer, push it back by 1. And again, duplicate this circle, push it back by 1. And again, duplicate it, position it, and push it back by 1. And if I roll out my view, there's my monogram. Now it's not in the right position, so I can come up here and select all. Just grab all the elements on the card, and now I can just simply drag and position it wherever I want it to go. There it is. Now if I want to transfer this to another card, I can transfer it as select all and copy and paste and open up a new card and paste a new card and rearrange all my layers. But there is kind of an easier way to do this. And I think I'm going to do it in 2 steps. I'm going to save my background monogram without the letters on it, just the faceplate design with a color. And then I'm going to superimpose the letters over it. And how I'm going to do that is going to take my monogram and I'm going to simply delete it at the moment so that it is gone. And now I'm going to use my publish as TIFF option. I could also publish as a JPEG. In this case, I'm going to publish as a TIFF, put in my images folder, and we're going to call this monogram nameplate style. And now when I come along and create a new card, say a note card, for example, and in this case a note card is going to be 5.5 wide and 8 1/4 high, and I'm going to have a top of 4 1/8, which is exactly half of the fold. And I'm going to see a visual of screen of where that fold is. I'm going to delete the text box that's on here now. I'm going to insert my image. There it is under my images folder. You'll notice that like everything else, it comes in the upper left-hand corner, and it comes in to be the full size of the card that I'd created, but that's okay. So what we need to do is grab one of the corners and resize this thing where we want it, and then drag and position it. And again, for fine-tuning, we can get our enlarge icon here and make it a little bit bigger and right in the center. Then I'm just going to come back and I'm going to add my monogram tool over it using the letters that we had wanted, which was the PE Sonetta. Typing in the GMR initials that we need and turning off a border pattern and drag it into position, and now resizing and repositioning as we see fit. I could also have dialed in the font size rather than click each time, but I'm more of a visual person and I like to use the icons for clicking. So that's it. That's how we were able to move that from one to another, and we've saved that background pattern to use on other cards. And more things that we could do if we want to enhance this card a little bit more is we could add just a couple of solid borders by using our border feature here on the text box. And we'll leave it that size for now as a solid border. Take this border, resize it to be approximately the size of the face. Now this works best, of course, if we have a printer that can print this kind of pattern borderless. Otherwise, we need to shorten the border away from the edge. And to give it a double border, if we will, we're going to duplicate that border, click it down a couple of notches in terms of size. And we're going to click it a couple more. I may need to resize it horizontally. And then I'm going to give it a color by right-clicking on that text box, choosing the attribute border, and choosing my color, which we know we use this color in here. And click OK. And there you have it. Just to make certain that we are aligned, I can take this text box and the text box outside of it. I have 2 text boxes together. I could choose Align, and now they are centered to each other.